This is Brian Dunne, and you're listening to The Break It Down Show.
And now, The Break It Down Show with John and Pete.
Brian, I think you've got the coolest gig in the United States. We found out about you because you are the drummer for Hall and Oates and Live from Daryl's House. And you have a very no-nonsense, masculine style of drumming that I appreciate. You know, you were able to play Love Train with the OJs.
Oh, my goodness.
You played Your Mama Don't Dance with Kenny Loggins. And what do you think about the gig, man? Is it all it's cracked up to be?
That and more. It's amazing, and we're all so lucky to be there, man. I mean, to play those iconic tunes with the artists, that's what we do it for. That's the ultimate goal, to be able to play these songs with the musicians who wrote them, sang them.
Thank you for what you and the band do. Literally hours and hours and hours of entertainment that I've had watching all of you guys play. And not only do you get to play with all these incredible performers, Joe Walsh, Rob Thomas. But when Rob Thomas says, hey, can we play this in a minor key so we can take this song that Daryl wrote 25 years ago and totally change it up? And you get to redo these songs in a totally new way, and that's so badass.
Now, here's me being a drummer. Brian gets to go, I don't give a fuck what key you guys do it in.
But the vibe is different, though.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm just having fun.
Yeah.
It's really cool, man. And Daryl, he wants us to he counts on all of us to do our own individual homework because there's no rehearsals for the show at all. We show up the day of the hit and we get ourselves together in terms of hearing each other, and the artist shows up and we kind of talk about the form of a song, and then Daryl just says, okay, let's go for one. And they start taping right away. And a lot of times, the first time we play the tune, that's what people are seeing and hearing. Oh. Usually it's a mistake. Usually what you guys are checking out is the second time we've played a song. It's very rare we play a song more than twice, and then we just have to live with it. I've asked Daryl, I've asked him, why don't we have the means and the time, and we can play each tune, 8 times. Every time we play it, it gets better. His attitude is, there's nothing interesting about that. I want it to sound like us in the moment. If we play it more than twice, we're going to start to crack and make it into sort of a finished product, and that's not what he wants. He wants to give people what actually happens when guys just get together and play. So it's pretty scary at times.
Well, you probably get input on this, but we appreciate the scary.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the charm of the show, is to know that you got – I mean, everybody in the band is so capable, and we love watching those tunes put in capable hands, but we know that there's spontaneity there. And you can see that, oh, holy shit, he's terrified. It's coming around to his part, and, is he going to pull it off? And you get to feel the tension, and you go, yes, he pulled out. And it's all because, and, yeah, it worked out. Great, and that's really kind of the charm of the show for me.
Yeah. There's a part in the Cee Lo episode when you guys are breaking down in the beginning, like, okay, then Brian's going to stop, and we're going to go, ha, 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 and then the other guys is like, look at me when you do that so I remember. And you're looking at him like Dan Marino looking at a receiver like, here it comes. And you want those moments because they are really fantastic. And then when you guys get done with the song and everybody steps back, it's like, whoa.
Yes, it worked. You can see the true relief in everybody's eyes. They're like, oh, holy shit, I didn't miss the change. Okay, great.
Yep.
Can I nerd out with you for a minute and ask you, who were you listening to as a kid? Who really influenced you as far as your playing?
I mean, I have 2 older brothers that play drums, so...
Oh, I was
lucky that I had brothers that were bringing home records, and essentially I was listening to whoever my brother was at the time, and both my brothers, they would get into one specific guy and go out and seek out everything that guy does, right?
Yeah.
So, my very first introduction to playing along with a record was Ronnie Montrose and Bad Company and Zeppelin, those 3 bands.
Wow.
Because my brothers were huge Zeppelin, Bad Company, and Ronnie Montrose fans.
Yeah.
So, needless to say, when I told my brother I was playing Rock Candy with Sammy. He almost fainted.
Yeah.
So I went through a stage of that when I was really young. I mean, super young. I was like, I don't know. That was when I was a little kid. I was like 7 years old, 8 years old or something. And then that turned to the R&B stuff. I can remember my brother buying the Shaka Khan and Rufus record, Live at the Savoy, which is a white double record, and it's J.R. Robinson. They would take the record downstairs, they would check it out, and then a couple of hours later, he comes upstairs and he hands it to me, and he's like, this is what you play. And I'll go downstairs and I'd drop the needle on the record and go to work, you know. I didn't know any better. I would just put whatever he gave me, I would check out. So there was a lot of, it was a Stevie Wonder stage, and then he started getting into, of course, he got into Steve Gadd. And then that was the thing that opened my eyes to lots of different artists, because any record Steve played on, my brother was going to go buy. So I learned about Al Jarreau via Steve Gadd. I learned about Chick Corea via Steve Gadd.
Yeah.
So gigantic can of worms was open. And
Steve Gadd opened up cans of worms for all of us.
Yeah.
I think I discovered Jean-Luc Ponty from Steve Gadd.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And Steve Smith, I can remember Steve Smith on our old Jean-Luc Ponty record. And like what happens to a lot of guys, he went from rock and roll to kind of R&B, and then it got into instrumental music, and then he got into straight ahead. So, of course, I did too. You know, so I was introduced to Max Roach and to Tony Williams and Elvin Jones and the usual cast of characters. And then, you know, the one thing that was a little weird, and I don't know that it's weird, it seems to be the story with a lot of people, I listened to jazz in a backward kind of way. Like, I was listening to Tony Williams before I was listening to Papa Joe Jones, right? Which is completely backwards. Like, 30 years the wrong direction. But over time, I got around to it. You know, as you get older, my brother started learning more and then realizing, wait a second, we're listening to Tony. We should be checking out whoever Tony listened to. And then you wind up working backwards from that point. So that's the deal. I'm 46 years old, so I'm of the generation that, like, I was in high school when Vinny and Dave exploding.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was.
We're all 46. Pete and I both are 46 as well.
Heavily into those guys.
Yeah. When I was in high school and discovered Vinny, it was on Joe's Garage. And, man, I think Joe's Garage did not leave the tape deck in my bucket of a truck for like a year and a half.
Dude, I think he's only 21 on that. That's frightening.
It is. It's frightening. It's discouraging because you listen to him at 21. It's like, Jesus, where do you go from here? You know, and when you have that diverse range of influences, you know, it really does feed into what we're listening to when you latch on to a drummer like Gadd or like Vinny or like Terry Bozzio, who will introduce you to a slew of other people.
Yep.
I don't think it's a risk to say that you're doing that for somebody. There is some young drummer out there who says, you know what, I'm listening to Brian Dunne, and I hear him on this or that, and I'm not familiar with how many recordings you've done with all these people, but I know you've played with a lot of different acts. I mean, you were in Average White Band before playing with Daryl. And everybody go to briandunnemusic.com.
Yeah.
And you'll see bio information and a couple of cool T-shirts, too, that you should probably buy.
Yeah.
But that's the truth about a drummer who has a body of work that stretches across several artists, is that you end up introducing the next generation of player to a lot of things that are going to take their playing and their approach to a lot of different places. Also want to say that we had a drummer on our show who I've said is my favorite drummer, and I speak in superlatives a lot, so I've said that about 10,000 guys. JR is my favorite drummer. Vinny's my favorite drummer. Dave Weckle's my favorite drummer. But I have settled on a favorite, and it's because we also happen to be good friends. But his name is Rich Uggan, and Rich played with Paula Abdul, and he was the drummer in that on the Hammer tour when we were kids. When MC Hammer was the biggest thing in the universe, he played drums on that tour. But he is exactly in the same situation you are in. He's the youngest of three brothers. He told the same story. He was like, yeah, my brothers would come home with this Earth, Wind, and Fire record, and then when they'd leave, I'd be like, oh, I gotta, they wouldn't let me do things. I had to fight for time on the drum set. So whenever they'd leave, I'd grab whatever they were listening to, and he ended up being the monster in the family, and the other two guys got normal jobs. So he tells a very similar story to you. That's pretty amusing to me.
When you're being turned on to stuff
at
a young age, man, it's funny you mentioned Earth, Wind and Fire. I left that out. I mean, Earth, Wind and Fire was huge in my house, and Maurice was. That's like one. Ralph and Maurice and Fred, all three monster pocket players.
Yep.
And had a huge impact on all of us. Actually, it's crazy. And I got to actually hang out with Maurice 8 hours a day for a couple of weeks.
Whoa! Wow.
Yeah, I did. There was my one time I did a Broadway musical in New York. It was a Broadway musical called Hockey, and it was the music of Earth, Wind and Fire. And Maurice came to New York, and he auditioned people. Like usually in the Broadway world, contractors hire the musicians.
Yeah.
And this time, since Earth, Wind and Fire's music was going to be played, Maurice said, "I'm going to take part in choosing who plays my music."
Wow.
Or the play's not going to happen. So he came to New York, and I auditioned, and I was very lucky. I auditioned with this bass player named Artie Reynolds, he was the bass player. Now he's the bass player on Dancing with the Stars.
Oh.
And he was the bass player for American Idol for, I think, 4 or 5 seasons. He basically there's a musical director named Ray Chu. And basically anything Ray Chu does, Artie is like his man, his bass player.
Wow.
And so I auditioned with Artie, who is like next to playing with Verdine, playing Earth, Wind, and Fire music. I mean, that Artie's as good as it gets. It's like that's the guy you want to play that music with.
Wow.
For a drummer to be playing that music with a guy who's completely owning it gave me the upper hand, versus a lot of other drummers that were auditioning with other rhythm sections. I happened to be with him and this guitar player named Keith Robinson, who actually was in Earth, Wind and Fire at a certain point. And so, I could have gone in there and just been a little better than adequate, and my job was made easy for me because I had, these two monsters on either side of me. So Maurice came, and he chose all three of us. And that requires, once you get the gig, there's usually 2 weeks, 10 days to 2 weeks of cast rehearsals, and he would be sitting, right next to me, like this legendary dude.
Yeah.
And it's crazy having to play that stuff in front of the guy who did it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But for me, it was the reason that I kind of quit the Average White Band at the time, because I had been on the road and I was thinking about, trying to stay home a little more at the time. And then this Broadway thing came about, and I was like, wow, if I can just be around Maurice White just for a couple of weeks, that's an opportunity I can't pass. So I went for it. And it wound up only lasting 6 months, but it wound up being an awesome experience, because he's one of those guys, man. He just walks in a room, even if you don't know who he is. He has that aura. He's like, people look like, whoa.
He's truly magical dude.
Yeah, he really is, man. So after 6 months, though, that gig was over. But luckily for me, I wound up going on the road with Patti Austin for a couple of years, so that was fine. But yeah, Maurice, man.
You were with Patti Austin for a couple years, huh?
Yeah, I used to sub for her R&B gig, her stuff that she did with Quincy, like the Duke record and all that stuff. And that same bass player, Artie Reynolds, used to do that gig. So I used to sub on that gig, but I was the drummer for her trio. And
so hold on a second before you talk about the trio, because that gives you an actual natural connection to JR.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. But now you were in the trio. By the way, I love Patti Austin. Musically speaking, she's an angel. But one day, my friend Derek Jones called me and said, "Hey, I'm playing with Dick Bright tonight at the Great American Music Hall. What are you doing?" And I said, "I don't know. I'd like to come check that out." So he said, "Okay." So Dick Bright he's got a big party band that is, if you're, say, the mayor of San Francisco and you get married or your daughter gets married, you'd get Dick Bright to play that gig.
Yeah.
but he was playing with Dick Bright that night, and we were out in the crowd just having a good old time, and I found myself dancing with this woman who was she had such an infectious enthusiasm in the way that she was dancing, and a couple songs into it, I'm like, man, I keep dancing with this lady, but I can't stop because she's awesome, and ended up being Patti Austin.
Come on!
Yeah. And it was, so Dick Bright said, hey, we have somebody in the crowd I'd like to acknowledge is Patti Austin. And I went, I've been dancing with Patti Austin all night. This is terrific. So, I will always love her musically, but I think that I will always love just how charming and cool she is. Did she live up to that?
Oh, man, she's absolutely, man. She's amazing. She's amazing. And she is, it's scary how consistent she is. Like, she's aware of her instrument so well that she knows, I guess, everybody's human, so, you're not going to be exactly 100% your capabilities night after night. But the great ones know what they can do on a nightly basis. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And she is superhuman with her consistency. It's crazy. And she's also a singer who listens to the people around her at all times. So she, by no means is she on an island. When she's singing, she's hearing every single thing you're doing, which is great, you know? I mean, if you're not dealing, it's not so great. But if you're bringing it, then it's an awesome feeling because
you're not going unappreciated.
So I was basically the drummer. I mean, I say trio. She used three people, and the main band was myself, this guy Mike Raschuti, who was still her MD, piano player, and a bass player named Tim Lefevre. Timmy plays with the Derek Trucks and Susan Tedeschi band.
Okay.
And I mean, he plays with so many people. It's crazy. He lives out in L.A. now. But the three of us are the core band, and she did a record called For Ella, and it was like her paying homage to Ella Fitzgerald singing the Great American Songbook with the WDR Big Band in Germany. And she actually finally won a Grammy after 7 nominations over the years. It took a jazz record for her to win a Grammy that she should have gotten,
years and years ago.
And so we would go out and play as a trio, or we would go out and play in the middle of a symphony orchestra. So we would go, we'd go to Houston and play with the Houston Symphony for 3 days in a row and then go back home. And that was the gist of the gig. So it was like a lot of one-offs and a lot of, 3 gigs here, come home for 2 weeks, go out, do four nights in a row in some other city. So it wasn't like a road gig where you go away for like weeks at a clip.
Yeah, that's good for a family man.
Absolutely. But that's why the Hall and Oates gig is
the best gig in America.
Unique. Dude, you ain't lying. Man, because these guys,
they all come
how
to
much
you.
Love it.
Yeah.
And they don't want the rigors of the road.
Right.
And they travel in a way that's like, bottom line is they treat us so, so good. And it's hard for me to verbalize. Like, we'll go out for 2 weeks, and then we'll be home for 4 weeks. We'll go out for 3 weeks, and then we'll be home for 2 weeks. We'll go out for another 3 weeks. We'll be home for 6 weeks. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm home much more than I'm away. Yeah. In 7.5 years in the band, I've never been away from home for more than 20 days consecutively. And the reality is, the way they do it when we're out there, it's got to cost them a crazy amount of money.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a drum tech. There's the hotels. Everything about what we do is it's as if we're in the middle of a year-long major tour. Only they just do it for 2 weeks, you know. And that's super rare because there are artists that treat the band great and they go out and they do huge shows and they generate a lot of money. But you got to go away for a long period of time. And then there are artists that do like what John and Daryl do for, they go out for a week and then you'd be home for a couple of weeks. But when you're out for that week, there's only so much money they can make in that short amount of time. And the other thing is Daryl doesn't even like to generally sing 2 nights in a row. So there's lots of nights off. So for whatever it is that they generate, which I'm sure is a lot of money, the way we're treated is pretty amazing. And it's the greatest gig, man. I can't even imagine. I tell you what, if I'm ever not doing that gig, you'll know that I was fired because I'm not quitting. It's like you play hit songs. Every song in the set is basically a hit.
Right.
And these
there
guys
isn't enough night for all the hits.
There's not. I mean, we only usually do like an hour and 15 minutes. It's a short set, and we leave out so many songs. I mean, it's crazy. So there's probably like 9 or 10 songs that they have to do, right? And then there's like another 10 that they can do that everybody will know. So it's like they have a problem. Like it's actually a great problem to have. They have to kind of choose 4 or 5 or 6 tunes that we kind of rotate in and out.
Rotate in and out, yeah.
Right.
So you got to do Sarah Smiles, but adult education might take a summer off.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, although certain tunes, we won't go a whole season without doing something, but we'll do a 2-week run without doing that song. And then a couple of weeks later, we'll do that song again.
So stuff gets rotated out, but it remains fresh. You don't have enough time to forget arrangements.
No, that's the beautiful thing. And the other thing is, there's no rehearsals on that gig either.
Wait a minute. Let's get this straight. Rehearsals. Hold on. You get to come home. You're home all the time. You don't play 2 nights in a row. Your travel.
Boss wants to do everything in 2 takes or less.
Right. You travel very, very well in luxurious environments. You get to have all the techs with you, so you don't have to compromise on any of that. And, by the way, you're playing hits the whole time.
Yeah.
And songs that you've grown up with and love.
It's insane.
This is
and then when you go home to a TV show.
Yeah, right. You go home to where, by the way, you are fed well.
Yes, that's my favorite part.
This is starting to get annoying, man.
My wife gets mad at me. She's yelling at me because when we sit around the table, I'm stuffing my face more than I'm talking.
Yeah. Well, when we watch those segments, I mean, let's say the most recent episode I saw was Kenny Loggins, right? So you're sitting there with Kenny Loggins. You got to let Kenny Loggins tell the story. But there you are sitting like 2 away from Kenny Loggins in the background, and you can tell, like, man, this guy's tearing up some shrimp. Sure, I'd let Kenny Loggins tell the story, but tell the story all you want. I got garlic shrimp in front of me. Just the ability to explore, though, with these artists and do kind of neat, interesting things, and to get told by an artist, hey, here's how we're going to do this. Because there's always those little subtleties in a song that you think, man, I wonder how they came up with that arrangement. And you get to hear all those stories firsthand, and then you get to experience the reconstruction of the song. What surprised you? Like, along the way, as you've been playing the last 7 years in this gig, what artist brought something to you where you thought, now that was a little piece of magic I'm never going to forget?
The first thing that comes to mind is Joe Walsh. Oh, man, that guy's just a rock star, man. He came in the room, and we were going to play we played Rocky Mountain Way. I think what wound up on the show was like the first time we played that song. And like he kind of talked us through what we were going to do, and when the guitar solo comes in that song, he puts that tube in his mouth and does that talk box, whatever that thing is on the wire. There's a guitar solo.
Yeah. And
when we were recording it, we were doing it, some guy comes walking in the room with another guitar. And Joe hands him his guitar, and the tech hands him the other guitar, because when he did the solo, he stays true to the record. So whatever guitar, if he used the Les Paul on the body of a song, on a given tune, that's the guitar he uses when he plays it live.
Wow.
And if he played the solo with a wah-wah pedal and a Strat, well, then that Strat is brought out and he plays it on that instrument when it comes solo time. So he does everything just the way it was on records. So the tech comes walking in the room, but we have cameramen, and we're not ready. We didn't know this guy was coming in the room. But this guy comes barging in the room with the guitar, hands it to him, and we're vamping, and then he does his guitar solo. And they switch guitars again, and the guy walks out of the room. And I'm like, wow, check this guy out. And
this is rock star shit that happens while you're playing with Daryl Hall. He takes it to a new level.
Exactly. And I'm like, check this guy out. And Joe Walsh it was like nothing for him. Like, of course that's what we do. Like, okay, like, yeah, what's the big deal? Like, nothing. These dudes he has nothing to prove.
Breakdown. John and Pete.
Hey, everybody, if you like the Break It Down show,
I can dig it.
And of course you do.
Of course you do. Hit that subscribe button.
John and Pete.
It helps us out.
Say what?
Hey, if you're going to like the show on Facebook or on Twitter, it helps us out if you share the show so people can learn about it. So liking it is great, sharing is even better.
Let's do some spy stuff.
Yeah, just
Let's
sneak
get
in
all
there.
our friends' phones and have them subscribe to the Break It Down show. Do it. Subscribe. Listen to the show. If you love the show, tell 5 of your friends. Or if you hate the show, tell 5 of your friends.
Billy Gibbons was the same way. Like, he had just a very cool, unassuming, not trying to prove anything kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And
That guy doesn't know how not to be a rock star.
Yeah, man. Pretty crazy.
You know, I'd like to hear about your relationship with Porter Carroll, because nobody really gets to see a drummer and a percussionist interact as much as we get to see on your show.
Right. Yeah, I can tell you what, Porter's a really interesting guy, man. Porter, first of all, have you guys ever heard of the band Atlantic Star?
Yeah.
Okay, so Porter started that band. He, created that band in White Plains, New York, with those two brothers and Sharon Bryant, and he was the drum set player in that band.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, Circles, and they had a number of hits. And so Porter's really a drum set player and a lead vocalist, a monstrous lead vocalist. So he had this whole, life of great experiences coming into this gig. And I didn't even know who he was until I met him when he first joined the band, too. Some of the other guys in the band had longer relationships with him. I met him when he first joined our band. So, yeah, man. So, Porter's great because he's playing percussion now, but he was already a drum set player. You know what I'm saying?
Does that mean that he's going to understand what your responsibility is to the backbeat a little more
Absolutely.
than most percussionists?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like a drummer becoming a bass player.
Yeah.
And then being a bass player that drummers like to play with, and vice versa. You
Right,
know?
because they understand.
So, yeah, he's been there and done that, for many years before I was even born.
He does tend to let stuff breathe. I do notice that. A lot of times he'll lay way back, and he could throw a conga part in there, but instead he'll just sit on 2 and 4 on the tambourine with you. And man, that he deserves as much time as he can get. But when a guy like that just says, "No, I'm just going to be a slave to this groove right here. I'm going to lay back in this cut." I love that. And his singing chops are monstrous. He can do anything.
Oh man, he's a great singer. He's a great singer and a great songwriter. He's written lots of songs. I mean, he was making a living as a songwriter after when at a certain point Atlantic Star kind of broke up, and then for the guys who kept the band going, they continued to have hit songs. And then Porter went on to be a songwriter and had success just basically as an independent songwriter as well. So, yeah, man, he's a wealth of knowledge to be around too. He's 60. I think he's 62 years old.
Wow.
So he's been around a long time, and he's seen a lot, and he's done a lot. So again, for me, it's nice, to always be around people that have been doing it longer than me.
Yeah, so that makes you the baby of the band, huh?
Yeah. Oh, you want me and Shane, the guitar player?
Yeah.
We're almost exactly the same age. I am actually. My birthday is October 1st. His birthday is 3 days before me. I mean, 3 days after me. 3 days after me. So technically, he's the baby.
Wow.
Yeah, we're both basically exactly the same age.
Is Shane the MD?
Yes.
It's such a fun band to watch, man. The way that you guys interact. And, I've been watching the show since its inception, and it's always been fun. But right now, you guys seem to have settled into something really, really magical. And I think it has to do with the fact that there were some moving parts and there were some personnel changes. And right now, I think, is great because you guys all seem to vibe in a way that really comes through in the music, no matter what artist you guys are playing with.
Yeah, I agree, man. This unit it's been the same for a while now, and that's the thing. Yeah, everybody, we play together. I feel like we play together well, and then after the hour and a half of playing, the other 22 and a half hours, we're great together. Socially, personally, everything is there's zero drama. Everybody's a pro. and everybody's super cool with each other. So it makes for a really stressless situation. You know what I mean? Everybody gets on together really, really well. So,
And sometimes, like with Fleetwood Mac, for instance, that stress made for some great music.
And sex.
yeah.
And sex, yeah. Lots of sex. But we want you guys to be stress-free and with each other sex-free.
If you want.
Yeah, no, whatever. Yeah. But Brian's a family man.
Yeah.
He can do that at home.
Yes.
The thing, though, that with you guys now is that since you've been in the band 7 years, I'm doing the math, you were there when T-Bone was still alive, huh? Is that true?
No, well, basically, yeah. I mean, no. T-Bone, in a way, is the reason I'm here though, because back when I was with the Average White Band, we opened up for Hall and Oates many years ago, and T-Bone was like right behind me watching the whole night. And after the show was over, he came over to me and he was unbelievably complimentary, and I could tell he really liked me. And then many years had gone by, maybe 7-8 years went by, and they were already, I think, 2.5 years into Live from Daryl's House recordings, and it was basically the band was the Hall and Oates band minus the drummer, and it was Sean Pelton.
Yeah.
Playing drums. And like Sean was one of T-Bone's boys. I mean, that's the guy that T-Bone would call for lots of stuff. And basically, Sean couldn't make a taping. And T-Bone called me and said, "Hey, you want to check out this? Would you be down to come down and play? We got this little internet show." And he kind of explained to me what it was, and I was like, "Of course, yes." And I was at that point considered the sub of the TV show, and that's it. And then shortly after that, T-Bone passed, and shortly after that, Hall and Oates drummer had some back issues, and he had to have a surgery, and he needed a sub to do a Hall and Oates run. And when he went to Daryl to talk to him about it, Daryl said, "Call me," because I was fresh in his mind from TV show.
Yeah.
And then I became the sub for Hall and Oates as well. And then both sub situations turned into they gave me both gigs after a while.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it all happened organically the way it was supposed to. And you moved into them little by little and slowly but surely, and through your hard work and dedication and consistency and all that shit.
I love
a lot of luck. A lot of luck.
A lot of luck,
Well,
yeah.
But luck is comes from hard work, Brian, and let's be honest. You've done a lot of work to be prepared for that opportunity. So don't downgrade your hard work for sure. I wanted to ask you, change gears a little bit, and ask you a question about drumming. John and I have this ongoing conversation as John tries to educate me.
Here we go.
Into the drum world.
You're going to have to settle a debate here.
Yeah, and be honest, but obviously, we're always trying to be kind on the show, so we're never trying to knock anybody. But I'm always trying to figure out the importance, relevance, quality of Larry Mullen Jr.'s drumming, and John is always trying to educate me on like what
somebody else,
classical,
practically
is.
Anybody else.
Yes.
And I love you, Larry Mullen Jr.,
Right.
but
yeah, there's an Ichiro swing quality to his drumming,
right,
where you can't coach it,
yeah,
but you can't deny the impact.
Right.
We didn't give him a question to settle.
Yeah. Are you asking my take on Larry Mullen Jr.?
Yes, please.
Help me understand.
You're among friends, Brian.
Well, I mean, the deal is, I like the way like what he does on those records. To me, is great. It's hard to judge someone if you never heard them do anything else but play in a specific band, especially when they're such an integral part of the sound of that band. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if is he the one that came up with those parts, or was it someone else telling him what to do? I don't know. I've actually, to be honest, I don't own a lot of U2 records. I actually became more of a U2 fan over the years. I came through the back door. So when they first came out, I was in a stage in my life where I was super snobby about pop music in general. So, I was.
Hey, you
I
were
was
busy
playing,
listening to Vinnie Colaiuta.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was listening to instrumental music, and then even when I started to get, as time went on, I started getting into more R&B. So I was a little out of touch. But I've grown. As I get older and I started to mature, I started to find what's really great about bands like U2 and drummers like him. I have nothing but good things to say because those recordings are iconic. You know what I mean? Like some of those, there's a groove. What's that on Bloody Sunday? I mean, that's a cool drum groove.
Yeah.
That's a really cool drum. So, I don't know. I mean, if I was in a session and I didn't know these people and they weren't big stars and they just started playing that song, there's no way I would play what he played. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's cool because
that's the Ichiro swing quality.
Yeah. I mean, it's like sometimes the more schooling and the more studying you've done, it can kind of be a drag on the creative process. You know what I'm saying?
Especially for a particular movement.
Yeah. I mean, I know I was just talking to someone the other day about this. Like, I can remember, like, the whole Steve Gadd and Vinny and like, can you guys see me right now?
Yeah.
Yes.
So you're a drummer. This whole thing, playing a hi-hat and, like, when you play eighth notes, doing this kind of thing, kind of accenting the downbeats.
Yep.
And the upbeats are kind of like, right? And this whole kind of flowing kind of thing. And, like, so I come from that, right? But as I started getting into R&B music and not so much the old stuff, but the newer stuff, and you start to, I start to hear the way stuff is programmed, and some of the funkiest stuff, if you play the hi-hat like this, it's not funky.
No, it's
Sorry.
not. Right, it doesn't work.
Sometimes you got to bash out eighth notes with no dynamics.
Right.
And
the funk is somewhere else.
Yeah. So, so again, that's like, you got to be careful. Like, if you don't, like, fortunately for me, I had the right people guiding me to find out stuff like that. I'd be playing with that bass player I told you about, and he'd be like, yeah, no, sorry, it's not happening. Like, he's like,
that's a true friend. That's a true friend right there.
Primal than that. You got to take all that slickness away, strip that away. Yeah. I don't hear eighth notes on the hi-hat. I hear quarter notes, and all the notes in between are too small. What are you doing? And then I start banging them out, and all of a sudden the whole feel changes, the whole momentum of the groove, pocket changes when you do small things like that. And that's not the stuff you learn like in school, or like that's the stuff you learn from someone who's not a drummer oftentimes, So, yeah. So anyway, the Larry Mullen thing. I mean, to me, it's great stuff.
So I think my dispute is not that Larry Mullen Jr. is not great. I love him, and all of the things you said I'm absolutely on board with. But what ends up happening is that we'll go away from our conversation with you, Brian, and we'll have a conversation about, the flowing on playing your hi-hat with that kind of flow, or laying back on the snare drum to try to in a ballad when you're playing your snare drum just a little bit behind the beat.
Yeah.
And Pete will say, oh, like when U2 did and I'll go, no, Pete, don't listen to Larry for that. You don't want to necessarily listen to Ringo for there's a reason why you listen to Bernard Purdie for a shuffle. And, right. I think one of the things, because Pete's frame of reference is often U2 because he's most familiar with their body of work, and I'm trying to pull him away from that and go, no, don't listen to Larry Mullen. He's not going to show you like Garibaldi grace notes. That's a whole different discipline. So, yeah. And I think you're punctuating both of our points at the same time, which is that there is greatness to a lot of the things that he played, but a lot of the greatness that's there is because of his individuality and his simplicity.
And that's what I'm trying to define and figure out. Like, with his success in his group and his voice and everything, and to not be rated amongst like the top 90 drummers in the world ever, on Rolling Stone's most recent thing, it baffles me to have that much success. And I'm trying to always figure out how he does it, and then the choices he makes. I get that he's not traditional, because he figured it out for himself and took some lessons along the way and everything else. But how can he be so successful being so atypical or counter style or, A style or whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, I mean, I tell you what, I mean, the first thing is I wouldn't put any stock in how anytime there's some sort of rating system, you have to ask yourself how are they rating these people? Like, if you're rating people on flat out ability, and or from a technical standpoint, then a lot of star drummers wouldn't even be on that list.
Right.
Like guys that were in very popular bands. You know what I'm saying? But if it's gonna be a mixture of everything, it's like how much of each ingredient. You know what I mean? That's why any kind of like list of the greats, it's really I don't put stock in that, and that's why I don't feel bad for a guy like him, because he's like, this guy's on top of the world. He's played with like one of the biggest bands in the history of music.
Right, yeah,
and
yeah,
so
ever.
many records, and I mean, like, what's bigger than you two? It's like
Nothing.
Crazy. You know what? The Rolling Stones. I mean, they're like they have to be one of the top 10 bands in terms of their fame and fortune ever. It's crazy. So I wouldn't feel bad about him. He's just fine, man.
I don't feel.
Nobody's
I don't
playing
feel bad.
violins for him.
Yeah, I don't feel bad for him at all. I'm just trying to figure out, his choices and everything.
But we do equally despise that Rolling Stone Top 100 drummers list. For me, because Tony Thompson's not on it. And I love Tony Thompson. And Omar Hakim's not on it. And for crying out loud.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
So, we
crazy.
all have our things that we hate about that
And Dunne's not
that
on
list.
either.
And Brian Dunn's not on it, for fuck's sake. What's
Yeah,
going on
no,
there?
I got a lot of work to do, man. I got a lot of work to do.
Well, don't sell yourself short, man. We really enjoy seeing the vulnerability of what you guys are doing on the TV show. And I can't wait until you come to town, because I really want to see what you guys are doing live when you actually do have a show that has tunes that you've played more than a couple times.
Exactly. Yo, I have there is a TV show. You guys know the TV show Showtime at the Apollo?
Yeah.
Okay, they just did a 2-hour special with Steve Harvey hosting it. It was on Fox, which I wound up doing. And we got to play with like all these artists. It was that musical director, Ray Chu. And we played with like these artists, and we did more than one episode's worth, and there's another one coming in February. I'll let you guys know. But I got to play 3 tunes with Chaka Khan, which was, for me, another huge pinnacle, man. Playing with her was like, wow.
And another connection to JR. I'm
Yes, that's
plugging him
right.
because we're trying to get him on the show. Anyway, there's a compliment as to how badass Brian is that here's a Long Island white boy on Showtime at the Apollo.
Right.
Come on.
Yeah.
What's funkier than that?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. That is the definition of funk right there.
Yeah, man. So, listen, we don't want to keep you too long, and I want to save some stories for when you come to town, because we want to try to capture you in a room where we don't have these technical issues with Skype. Would you do a show with us when you're in town at some point?
Totally. Absolutely.
Right on.
Hey, I do want to sneak one question in. Tell me one thing about Wyclef, because I love Wyclef, and he also makes choices that I never would expect. Like he did a harmony with Daryl, and I'm like, he's in the wrong spot. He's late. He's not where he's supposed to be, and I love it.
He was great, man. What a vibe.
Yeah.
He was perfect for that show, man. He kind of came in there, and he was willing to just go with the flow. He was one of those guys that came in, and Daryl was like, this is the way we do it, and we're going to play the song once or twice, but that's it. And he's like, cool. He didn't care. He was totally down for it. Some of the artists that come in there are shocked by how fast stuff goes by, because, I've been countless artists will play a song, and when we get to the end, Daryl will go, oh, that felt good. Next. And then the artist will go, what? You're kidding me, right? And he'll go, no, man, that's how we do it. That felt good. And we can all point to moments in the song where little things happen. This felt weird. That felt weird. But overall, if it felt good, short of a train wreck, Daryl's like, next. And then, the artist will be like, are we going to at least listen back? And he's like, nope.
The moment's over.
That's it. We're done. And then you'll see it. You wind up hearing it for the first time 6 months later when you're watching it on TV.
Yeah. You know what the show is, man? Those performances are that beautiful girl who does not wear makeup. And she'll walk in the room, and sometimes there'll be a hair out of place or whatever, and that's what you love about her. You're like, man, that rocks so hard because of the flaws. And
Yeah.
it really is
It
that.
drives me a little crazy though, man. I have to say, because I want it to be, I want it to more than feel good. I want it to feel good every single moment. You know what I mean? And now the thing is, so many people are watching it. I mean, I went into a club in Manhattan and just guitar player, Bill Sims, and Charlie Drake was playing drums. And Charlie's like, to me, Charlie's like, forget it. That's like, he's one of the baddest. And I approach him the first time I'm actually meeting him, and he's like, hey, man. And he's like pointing at me. Yeah, I had breakfast this morning watching you play with Grace Potter. Great job, man. And like he has all these compliments, and I'm like, I can't even believe this guy is watching that. Because he's like my heroes, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then you realize, wow, people are actually watching this. Like musicians are watching it, which makes me want it to be that much better.
Yeah.
But, you get a couple of shots and that's it. You got to live with it. So
Well, listen, man, I think that I'm gonna push back and say I think that's why musicians are watching it, because we get to look at it as this is the jam in the living room. This is because of the setting being in Daryl's club and before that in the barn, where you could say, like, this is when my parents went on vacation that one time, and we took the couch and the coffee table out, and we set the band up in the living room, and we got all the space, and we had all our stuff out, and and we did it, and you're doing it in real time, and it's not polished, and that's what's beautiful about it.
Yeah.
yeah.
One last thing. I'm going to put you on the spot for one last thing. Let's say Daryl says, I'm going to fold up this TV show and retire. And thanks a lot, you guys. But you, Brian Dunne, get to pick one artist that's been on the show that you get to sail away with and be the new drummer in their band. Who is it?
Ooh.
On the spot with Brian Dunne.
Oh, man, I don't know. You talking just musically or like whatever their band situation is?
I don't know.
Some of these people, I'm fans of them, but some of them travel too much.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I can tell you just a few artists that knocked me out personally when they came in there was Joe Walsh. Grace Potter, to me, is a badass. She sang great. And same thing with Gavin Degraw. Gavin Degraw,
yeah.
Man.
super bad. Man.
That was really strong, too.
He is really great, man. He really is.
And seems like a really great dude as well.
Yeah. He's real deal, man. We did a show not too long ago, and his band was playing at the same festival, and we got to go back and check out some of it too. And yeah, man, he's bad.
He said one of the things on the show that was so profound and really stuck with me was when he talked about how guys go somewhere to get signed instead of going there to get good. And I went, you know what? I'm going to be a fan of this guy for the length of his career.
Yeah.
That was pretty heavy.
Yeah.
So, anyway, hey, thanks a lot, man. This has been terrific.
We love it.
We really appreciate you. Keep up the good work. Man, you got a couple fans out here who are going to watch every note you play, even the ones where you fuck up, and we're looking for them. And we love them.
Oh, there's lots of those.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate you, man.
All right, see you guys.
We'll be in touch.